Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today we're taking a look at the Division 2's Warlords of New York expansion. It's available now and takes you back to New York City, where you have to hunt down the rogue agent Aaron Keener. Along with the expansion, there are some new gadgets, weapons, exotic sets, and more. In fact, the game's entire gear system has been reworked, simplifying all weapon stats and modifiers. More on that later in the video. Check the description for a link to the game and more details about Warlords of New York. Thank you to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video. So, what is the deal with Aaron Keener? He's a rogue agent that was behind several key events in the first game. A prime example being the bombing of your helicopter at the start of the game that injures Fei Lao, the acting commander of the Division in New York. Throughout the first game, Keener was working behind the scenes to undermine the Division, killing many first-wave responders to viral outbreaks that collapsed society. You spent most of your time as a second-wave responder piecing together the aftermath of Keener's actions. Fast forward to the Division 2, and Keener has reworked the original virus to be more lethal thanks to the help of a scientist he captured. In Episode 3, you free that scientist and find out about Keener's plan to retake New York City. I showcased Episode 3 in my last Division 2 video if you want to check it out. Now, in Warlords of New York, you fly to New York City and have to track down 4 of Keener's devoted former First Wave Division agents. Each one has control of a different district, giving you 4 distinct areas of the city to explore. Right off the bat, it's clear the developers took their time putting this expansion together. And despite returning to a familiar place, New York City looks dramatically more overgrown and destroyed than it did in the original game. The streets are covered with plant growth and lined with destroyed buildings. It really looks like a post-apocalyptic urban war zone instead of just a city in crisis. And of course, the reason for the differences being so dramatic is that Warlords takes place over 6 months after the original game. Things have gotten worse as the aftermath of the virus fractured society, leaving people basically on their own to defend themselves from hostile groups like the Cleaners. With Keener's return to the city, areas you secured in the original game, like Midtown, are no longer safe. Hunting down Keener's people takes you on missions throughout each of their regions of the city. You have to track down 4 leads to find each person. You can hunt down each person in any order that you choose, as well as hopping between regions to get leads as you please. Along the way, you'll fight through abandoned buildings, underground bases, on rooftops, and more. For example, taking down Vivian Conley, the new leader of the Cleaners faction, has you fighting through a beached oil tanker that she took control of. As you play through the missions, you'll encounter named bosses and, of course, Keener's 4 devotees. They all drop high-end loot that packs a serious punch. Theo Parnell, who controls the Civic Center, drops a powerful marksman rifle when you take him out. Vivian Conley drops a sticky bomb gadget that sticks to and blows up even heavily armored targets. Now, if you're already at max rank, the expansion has launched alongside a new patch that ups the max level from 30 to 40. The gear system has been reworked and is now called Gear 2.0. Basically, all of your existing weapons, gear, and mods have been reworked to streamline basically everything. There's a new list of attributes that gear can randomly be assigned, and they all look more focused and meaningful than before. Talents have also been reworked, and the list of changes is extensive. They can only appear on weapons, backpacks, and chest gear now. Each item is limited to 1 talent. Naturally, there's a bunch of new meta to learn with how your gear interacts. This update also introduces seasons, which include global events, gameplay modifiers, and unique rewards, opening up the endgame grind with more things to do and ways to earn interesting gear. Frankly, there's so much new stuff and change stuff that it's certainly worth reading up on it a little bit if you're getting into the new content. Now, something that really stood out with this expansion is just how lush and detailed New York City looks. It feels like you're getting a huge slice of the city to explore rather than just one area with a handful of things to do. There's obviously the main missions, but there's also territory missions, underground ops, new gear sets related to specific characters, a new base of operations, 8 side missions, and the return of 2 factions from the first game, Rikers and Cleaners. Both factions have been updated with new enemy types, smarter AI, and a visual overhaul that gives them a more war-torn appearance. Going back to New York City doesn't feel like just jumping back into the original game. The time has passed, the seasons have changed, and the people people have moved on. The biggest strength of this expansion is that it's brought life to New York City in a way that the original game didn't. The Division 1 was set in the winter, so everything was cold and desolate. It was still great looking and had a really immersive sense of isolation, but that isolation also meant that the sparsely populated city feels like a ghost town. Warlords brings the city alive visually while giving all the characters you interact with more to do and say. Before, characters talked about bringing order to the chaos and reclaiming the city. Now they talk a lot more about stabilizing the peace and safety that they've built for themselves. However, trust in the Division is low, and with Keener's people ramping up aggression, everyone is under constant threat of attack. And the expansion isn't called Warlords of New York just to sound cool. Keener and his people are genuinely trying to fight back against the Division and the people of New York. There's a sense that a lot more is going on now, with power struggles and society trying to pull itself back together anew, rather than preserving what remained after the initial viral attack. To help you fight back against Keener and his people, you'll get your hands on some new weapons. Two highlights for me are Theo Parnell's marksman rifle and the shotguns. Gear 2.0 has opened up the diversity of character builds and weapon loadouts. The game is still pretty well optimized for high rate of fire assault rifles, but the more heavy-hitting weapons like the DMRs and shotguns pack a serious punch. Against both shields and armor, Parnell's rifle shreds. By default, it comes equipped with a magnified optic, but swapping that out for a standard sight opens up its effective range to medium and close quarters. Now in extreme close quarters, shotguns do their job and hit people like a fridge. I tried out a few of the pump action shotguns from regular enemies and they mop the floor with even heavily armored targets. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for some of the exotic ones. Vivian Conley also drops a black market PKP in addition to the sticky bomb launcher, and it's a great crowd control weapon. In fights with the guys who use massive riot shields, it was great having a fairly accurate bullet hose to land critical hits through the window on the shield. Now, in a lot of ways, Warlords of New York feels like more than just the DLC for the game. It feels like a proper expansion of the game's story, characters, and gameplay. Despite going back to familiar places, I didn't feel like it was retreading the same ground. Time has not been kind to New York City or its people, and the game really illustrates this. When Division 1 launched, it gave us a glimpse at a post-apocalyptic city in the making. There was chaos in the streets and destruction throughout the city, but there was still a chance for things to go right. People were still hiding in their apartments, areas of the city were deserted but not destroyed. Warlords, on the other hand, shows us a city knee-deep in survival mode. Nature is fighting to take back the land lost to the skyscrapers and roads. People are trying to take back peace and order from rogue troublemakers like Keener, and the backdrop this whole narrative is set against really looks the part. Now, if you want to check out Warlords of New York for yourself, be sure to use the link in the video description. This is definitely a good time to come back to the game and check out all the new features and reworks of the game's mechanics. Again, thank you to Ubisoft for sponsoring this video. If you guys want to see more coverage of Division 2, let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap, signing off.